Hi, everybody. Just so you know, I'm a crier. Tissue, I've already been crying, so cry with me, please. Tonight, I'm going to talk to you and share with you. Already started. A part of my story. And the one thing that I want you to leave with, no matter the valleys or the mountaintops that you might be facing right now, is to keep your hope alive. To keep your hope alive in Jesus. He's our anchor. In 2009, I was diagnosed with a rare neurological disorder. It's called hemiplegic migraines. It's actually a type of a migraine, but what it did is that it mimicked strokes. So I had the same effect on my body as a stroke would, but without, the clot or anything. So I would get right-sided paralysis. I would lose my ability to speak, to talk. Most that is talking. To swallow, to walk. I really was at its mercy, and I would just have to wait for them to pass. I had them about 3 to 4 times a day, and they would last a couple hours. And as you can see, I was a wife and a mama to 4. That's pretty trying times. Now, the level 10 attacks is the ones that my husband and I, we kind of made our own scale for me to tell him how bad they were. A level 10 it would affect both sides of my body, so I would become basically a quadriplegic. I couldn't even wiggle my fat toe, even if I tried. I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk, I couldn't swallow, and eventually I would lose consciousness because my diaphragm wouldn't let me take enough breaths to breathe. These are the ones where I usually woke up and from consciousness in the back of an ambulance with them screaming stroke alert. I was at a higher risk of having a stroke, and there really was no way of telling if this was the massive stroke they told me that I was always going to have or not. Now, these are the ones who have affected my body like I had a massive stroke. So I had to relearn how to walk, relearn how to talk, relearn how to swallow, even to open and close my hands, like fine motor skills. Walking took the longest. Walking took months and months of physical therapy. And if you've never been into physical therapy, it sucks. It's excruciating. First, you're trying to connect your brain to that muscle, telling it to move, but it's not moving. It's frustrating, it's scary, because you don't know if it's gonna move or not. And this happened 6 times in a matter of 5 years. So meaning, yes, 1 year it happened twice. Now, at the same time, while all of this was going on, I also was dealing with a lot of mental illness. So I had anxiety, I had depression, I had PTSD from past trauma and abuse that I experienced earlier in my life. I had panic attacks, and I had suicidal thoughts. And in those 5 years, I also spent 2 times in the psychiatric unit for my safety. You would think I would hit rock bottom, but this is when I hit rock bottom. So Christmas 2018, that year I had actually made some changes. Things looked a little bit promising. I had attacks 3 to 4 times a day to like 3 to 4 times a week. And I was like, yes, this is the healing God almost promised me. I was driving a little bit again. I had gained a little bit of independence back. So this whole scenario happened again. It was Christmas week, 2018. The same sensation started happening. I knew what was happening, and I was mad. I told my husband, don't even call 911. If this is my time, then let Jesus take me, because I'm tired of fighting. Every day was a fight to stay alive. I didn't know which one of these things were going to take me out, but they were battling. Now, this is the part where I had to really surrender my story to God. I didn't know what he was doing. I couldn't see past my circumstances. Every doctor that I saw told me, this is your life, you need to accept it, learn how to live with it. But I said, okay, God, I have to trust you. You need to tell me what to do because I don't know what to do anymore. Let me encourage you wherever you're at right now. Impossible is where God starts. When you have reached when you have reached your end, I don't want you to give up. I want you to raise your hands and say, God, I trust you, because I know this is where you start. He's going to tell you to do things outside of your comfort zone. He's going to tell you, you need to step out in faith, and I need you to do this. And you might argue with him and say, I can't do this. What are you talking about? That's crazy. I can't do that. At least that's what I did. He told me to do these two things. He said, mind you, keep in mind, I'm still in a walker. I'm still relearning how to walk for the 6th time. And he says, you're going to run a 5K. I'm like, what? And if you knew me prior to any of this, I didn't run. I was not your cardio type of girl. I hated running. I had to Google what a 5K was. I knew it had something to do with running, but like, how many miles are we talking about here? Because I'm literally in a walker. And he also told me to incorporate, so he also told me to start incorporating a new health regimen with gut health. Now, this kind of turned a little light bulb on for me, because a year prior, that doctor that helped me make those initial changes, he had talked to me about gut health and how my gut was just pretty jacked up. So it sparked my interest, but it also terrified me, because anything new could set off one of these attacks. So like, I ate the same things, I wore the same things, even fabrics messed with me, smells messed with me. I went to the same places, I wore really big Hollywood glasses. So anything new terrified me, because I was living in survival. I was trying to live every day, trying to prevent going to the hospital, trying to prevent this massive stroke they told me I was always gonna have. So even implementing like a vitamin was terrifying, honestly. But I said, okay, I'm gonna do it your way, because literally I have nothing else to do. I have hit rock bottom. I have tried everything else. I'm gonna do it your way. So I started running, kind of running. I would go to the mall and I would walk laps around the mall, because one, it's Florida, it's hot, and there's AC there, and I had benches if I needed to, sit down. I probably looked like a crazy person, because I was determined. Like, if you saw the look on my eyes, I had my walker and I had my cane, and I was just huffing it, the laps around the mall. And little by little, I started feeling a little bit better. These attacks were not as severe, they were not as long, and they just gradually kind of started getting better. And then I felt, honestly, this is probably weird to hear this, but I felt joy for the first time, like unmedicated joy for the first time. There's a difference. I remember even telling my husband, and some of you might get this, some of you won't. I said, Alex, you need to watch me. I'm concerned. And he was like, what's wrong? I said, I'm happy. Like, I thought I was having like some kind of manic episode or something crazy, because that feeling was so foreign to me. So all of these things are like going good and going great, and so I started going outside to walk, to kind of run. It was honestly, running was like hard. I had to rebuild the muscle because I had permanent weakness in my right side. So as I was going, I was rebuilding some of the muscles, the strength that I had lost. I wanted to give up like 1,000 times, and God was like, no, go. So even if I had an attack that day, I got up, I waited for it to pass, and I went outside and I started running. And little by little, I got better and I got stronger. And in 4 months, these conditions that they told me that I was going to have for the rest of my life were gone. And that May, That's why I'm emotional, because it's May. That May, I ran that 5K. And then I wanted to see what else I could do. I had fallen in love with running. Not necessarily running, but it was the freedom that it gave me. It was feeling not scared of my body, but seeing what my body could do. It taught me self-worth, some self-esteem, some, hey, I can do hard things. Look at what I'm doing. So I kept running. That October, I ran a 10K. And that December, the 1-year anniversary of that last massive attack, I ran a half marathon. I'm going to show you a video so you can kind of see what happened. So one day I'll get to a marathon, but my story doesn't end there. So I think we all have a 2020 story in one way or another. This is my January 2020 story. There was a major plot twist. So here I am running maybe 20, 23 miles a week because I had gone straight to training for my marathon. And I was 1 week out from the half marathon race I had signed up to do. The one that I did was just around my neighborhood. And I started fainting, like left and right, just fainting. I'd stand up, faint, stand up, walk, faint. I'm like, what is going on? And I'm stubborn, and I didn't want to go to the hospital. And it wasn't until my husband called our friend Jess, who's a cardiac ICU nurse. She came over, and she was like, let's go. So we went to the hospital, and we found out that my heart rate was very, very low, dangerously low. They kept telling me, hey, I think you might need a pacemaker. Hey, you're too young for a pacemaker, but maybe this is a possibility. Let's keep doing tests. So I made it out of the hospital without a pacemaker, thank you, God. But I was mad. I was confused. I was like, how could I be running so many miles, like the healthiest, the happiest that I probably have ever been in my whole entire life, to, in about 2 weeks, bedridden. I couldn't even walk to my bathroom without passing out. And God kept telling me, do you trust me? I said, yeah, God, I trust you, but what is happening? What I don't understand what is going on. And he just kept saying, no answers, just do you trust me? Now, I had a choice. I was either going to pick faith or I was going to pick fear. I was kind of like at the same crossroads that I was at the last time. And I said, okay, I'm gonna trust you again. And I had to believe that he was just going to show up. I had to believe that Jeremiah 29:11 applied for my life too. And it wasn't just a pretty verse in the Bible or is it a verse on the wall, that he had a plan and a purpose for my life and to give me hope and to give me a future. I had to believe that because I didn't know what else to do. So, long story short, we found out that I had mold toxicity. So we had toxic mold in our house. That basically crippled me. And with more testing, we actually found out that through the mold, we found out that I have Lyme disease, which is the root cause of everything that I've had since 2009. The real reason behind everything. So even though there's pain, there's always a purpose. Honestly, if we hadn't found the mold, I probably wouldn't have discovered the Lyme. this past year has probably been the hardest, most challenging, mentally, physically, and spiritually that I have ever been through. And that's saying something. But I realized how everything that I've gone through prepared me for this time. Mentally, I'm strong enough to withstand the highs and the lows that come with Lyme disease and the treatment. Physically, I'm strong enough to get through the detox and the treatments, because even before if I had this while I was still dealing with my hemiplegic migraines, I would have had that stroke, and that would have been it. And spiritually, my faith has become stronger and deeper and so rooted. No matter the obstacles that I face, I know He is for me, He is with me, and He's not about to leave me. I kind of joke around with my husband and I say, it's just like the movie, in the movie Jumanji, when the guy comes back and you like get to the nether level, and he's like, doop de doop, congratulations, you have reached your next level of healing. Like, I think that's the way that I see it, because healing is a journey. It's not linear. It's a whole bunch of squiggly lines, and it's the journey where you learn and you grow. And I think that's like one thing that I've really learned this year is that there's not just a destination. It's a journey. So this is my point to you, and something that I want you to remember. No matter how hard it gets, look for God in every detail. Remind yourself that all of what you have previously endured, do you see Him there? Do you see Him with you walking through those steps? His character doesn't change. He's still the same, and He's going to be walking with you now, just like He did then. We're not called to understand it all. We're not called to figure it out and to make plans. Anybody else a control freak like me? We are called to just keep our hope in Him alive, to keep our eyes focused on Him, to open our hands wide open, say, I don't know what you're doing, but I trust you. So wherever you're at, I want you to find, even if it's a tiny spark of hope, that little ember, you need to fuel that into a roaring fire. And that's what's going to carry you. Thanks, guys.